I should have known right then. When your wife laughs like that with another man, too loud, hand lingering on his forearm like she's got a right to touch him, she's already gone. You just don't know it yet. January in a church basement smells like burnt coffee and wet wool. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while metal folding chairs scraped across linoleum. Potluck after Sunday service? Diane stood across the fellowship hall with Vincent Stallworth, laughing at something he said. Her wedding ring caught the light as her fingers brushed his sleeve. Once, twice, 3 seconds too long. Pastor Elwood saw it, looked away quick like he'd walked in on something private. Vincent leaned close, said something about an exciting development opportunity coming to our community, prime agricultural land. Looked right in my direction when he said it. Diane's eyes lit up. The styrofoam cup cracked in my grip. Cold coffee sloshed over my knuckles. I watched her whisper Thursday as they refilled their plates at the dessert table. Wind howled against the brick walls outside, rattling the window frames. Thursday. What happens Thursday? The truck cab was cold on the drive home. Diane buckled her seatbelt, adjusted the heat vents, smoothed her skirt. Normal things. But something had shifted, like ice cracking under your boots when you can't see the fracture yet. So who's Vincent Stallworth? I kept my voice casual, eyes on the road, snow piled along the shoulder, dirty gray under the streetlights. New client. She pulled down the visor mirror, checked her lipstick. Big account, actually. Commercial real estate development. He needs bookkeeping for multiple LLCs. Seemed friendly. He's chatty, some people are. She snapped the visor shut. The heater blew warm air that smelled like antifreeze. Outside, bare tree branches scraped against power lines in the wind. What's Thursday? Her hand paused on the radio dial, just for a second. Thursday? Heard you mention it, to him. Oh, that. She turned up the volume. Country station, some song about trucks and heartbreak. Just scheduling our next meeting. Quarterly tax prep stuff. Why? She'd never turned up the radio before. 33 years of marriage, she always said the music gave her a headache while driving. No reason? We rode the rest of the way in silence except for the music and the wind buffeting the truck. When we got home, she went straight to her office, locked the door, said she had work to catch up on. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the furnace kick on. The old farmhouse settled and creaked around me. Grandfather had built this place in 1947, same year he planted the first apple tree. 4 generations of Mercers had stood in this kitchen, looked out at those same 80 acres. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't name it yet. Thursday came with freezing rain and a weather warning. The kind of ice storm that coats everything, brings down power lines, traps you wherever you are when it hits. I'd planned to graft new stock onto the old trees in the barn workshop. January's the right time. Trees dormant, sap sleeping, cuts heal clean if you do it right. Brought Diane's box of property documents with me. Figured I'd review the tax assessment while the grafting putty set. She'd been after me for weeks to look at the numbers, sign off on the annual review. The barn smelled like diesel fuel and old wood. My breath fogged in the cold. I fired up the space heater, pulled on my work gloves, laid out the grafting tools on Grandfather's workbench. Sharp knife, pruning shears, grafting tape, putty compound, everything in its place, same as he'd taught me 50 years ago. By noon, the ice had started. Rain that froze the second it touched down. By 2 o'clock, the roads were glass. Power flickered twice, then died. My cell phone had 1 bar, barely. Diane called around 3. Don't try to drive home. Stay put. Wasn't planning on it. I'll be fine here. Got the generator if we need it. You know how to start it? I'll figure it out. Her voice had an edge. Impatient. I've got work to do anyway. She hung up before I could say anything else. The wind picked up, howling through gaps in the barn siding. Ice ticked against the metal roof like 1,000 tiny hammers. I went back to the grafting, cut the scion wood at an angle, matched it to the rootstock, bound them together with tape. Careful work, precise. Some of these trees were dying, but you could save them if you grafted strong new growth onto old roots. Around 6, when the light was failing, I opened Diane's document box. Needed something to do while the graph set. Found the property tax assessment on top. I read it twice. Then 3 times. The assessed value had doubled. Not gradually over years, all at once. In a single filing dated November 15th. No improvements listed. No buildings added. No reason given. Just doubled. My hands went cold even with the gloves on. I dug deeper in the box, found the filing paperwork. Standard form. County Assessor's Office. But at the bottom, in small print, assessment requested by Stallworth Development LLC for a commercial zoning review. Vincent's company. Requesting a review on my land, my grandfather's land. The space heater rattled. Wind screamed through the barn. Ice coated the windows in thick white sheets. Filed by Stallworth Development LLC, Vincent's company. On my land assessment. And Diane had been handling all the paperwork. Valentine's Day. I planned dinner. Nothing fancy, pork chops, roasted potatoes, that cherry pie she used to ask for when we were dating. Set the table with the good plates, the ones from our wedding registry that we never used because they seemed too nice for every day. Candles, wine, flowers from the grocery store, already half wilted but better than nothing. She came out of her office at 7:30, looked at the table, looked at me. Her face did something I couldn't read. Clay, I have a deadline. Major client filing. I told you this morning. It's Valentine's Day. I know what day it is. She grabbed a plate, loaded it with food without sitting down. I'll eat in the office. Sorry. The word sorry came out flat, like reading from a script she didn't believe in. She carried the plate back toward the office, stopped in the doorway, didn't turn around. Don't wait up. The candles burned down to nothing. The wine sat untouched, warming to room temperature. I ate alone at the table, the sound of my own chewing too loud in the quiet house. Outside, the February thaw had started. Drip, drip, drip from the gutters. Ice, melting, making mud. Around midnight, I gave up on the living room couch, went to put my coffee cup in the kitchen sink. Her office door was still closed, light showing underneath. I could hear her typing. Fast, angry clicking. When I reached for the doorknob, it didn't turn, locked. She'd never locked that door before. Not in 33 years. The furnace kicked on, the house creaked. I stood there like an idiot with my hand on a locked door, listening to my wife work on the other side. I went upstairs. She came to bed around 3. Didn't touch me. Didn't speak. Just took her side of the mattress, rolled away, pulled the blanket tight around herself. Morning came gray and cold. She was already up, already dressed, already gone to her office when I woke. I went downstairs, made coffee, found her winter coat on the hook by the door, the one she'd worn to church. To the potluck. Something crinkled in the pocket. Just paper, probably a receipt. I pulled it out. Hampton Inn, room 302, January 14th, total charge, $187.43, timestamp 11:47 p.m., January 14th, the ice storm night. The night I'd been trapped in the barn, grafting trees and discovering the property assessment paperwork. The night she'd said she was home alone, safe, managing the generator. The receipt smelled like lavender, her perfume. The paper was soft, worn, like she'd touched it more than once. Kept it, instead of throwing it away. My hands shook. The coffee cup rattled against the counter when I set it down. Tom Bridger called that afternoon, asked if I could stop by the bank. Casual tone, but something underneath it. We'd known each other since high school, played football together, been in each other's weddings. Just need to go over some account security stuff, he said. Nothing urgent. Everything about his voice said it was urgent. The bank smelled like carpet cleaner and stale air. Tom's office had a window overlooking Main Street, melting snow in dirty piles along the curb, gray slush, people walking hunched against the cold. He closed the door, sat down heavy in his chair, wouldn't meet my eyes. Clay, I need to ask you something, and you can tell me it's none of my business. Oh, go ahead. Has Diane talked to you about selling the orchard? My chest got tight. Why would you ask that? Tom pulled out a file folder, opened it, forms, applications. Because 3 weeks ago, someone made inquiries about property liens, potential encumbrances, asked about the process for forcing a sale if one party in a marriage wanted to sell and the other didn't. Who made inquiries? But I already knew. Diane. She came in personally, brought Stallworth with her. Tom's voice dropped. Clay, I'm not supposed to tell you this. Confidentiality and all. But you're my friend. And something about the whole thing felt wrong. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Outside, a car horn honked. Someone cursed at the slick roads. Clay, has Diane talked to you about selling? The hotel receipt was still in my coat pocket. Hampton Inn, January 14th. That's when I knew. Really knew. Not just an affair, something bigger. I drove home in silence. The mud season had started. Everything wet, brown, rotting under the melting snow. The fields looked dead. The orchard looked dead. Everything looked like it was dying. Diane's car was in the driveway. I could see her through the window, in her office, on the phone, laughing. I went inside quiet, hung up my coat. She didn't notice me. The office door was closed but not locked this time. Through the gap, I could see her desk, the filing cabinets. One of the drawers had a new lock on it, shiny brass, fresh installation. And in her trash can, crumpled but not torn, property survey maps, blue lines, lot divisions, Stallworth Development Preliminary Site Plan in the corner, my orchard, divided into parcels, numbered, priced. Tom's voice echoed in my head. Has Diane talked to you about selling? She hadn't. She just started doing it anyway. I spent the next week like I was back at the insurance company. 30 years investigating fraud teaches you things. How to track money, how to spot patterns, How to follow paper trails until they lead somewhere ugly. Vincent Stallworth wasn't hard to find online. LinkedIn profile with the professional headshot. Too much teeth in the smile, expensive suit. Commercial real estate development, rural revitalization specialist. Bringing progress to small-town America. 3 previous developments, all in farming communities within 100 miles. All involving land that transformed from family orchards or cattle ranches into strip malls, storage units, dollar stores. All 3 properties had been owned by married couples. All 3 wives had run small bookkeeping or accounting businesses. I sat in the barn workshop with my laptop and a space heater, diesel smell mixing with the cold air. My breath still fogged even with the heater running. Outside, mud season had started for real. Everything brown and wet, snow rotting into slush. One of the previous developments listed Stallworth and Associates, LLC, as the purchasing entity. Different name, same pattern. I found the property records. The wife had filed for divorce 6 months after the sale went through. Husband got nothing. Land was gone before the ink dried on the papers. Another project listed a different LLC, but Vincent's name appeared in the fine print as consulting partner. That wife's name was Jenny Chin Stallworth, same last name, his ex-wife. Took me 20 minutes to find her email. She ran a small architecture firm now, 3 states away. Website showed clean designs, simple buildings that fit their landscapes instead of fighting them. I wrote carefully, explained who I was. Said I thought Vincent might be working with my wife on something involving my property. Asked if she'd be willing to talk. Hit send before I could second guess it. The response came 40 minutes later. The email was 15 pages. PDF attachment, timeline, bank records, property filings, photographs. Jenny's note at the top was 3 sentences. He did this to my business partner too, started as a client, ended with her husband losing everything, while Vincent and I split the profit. I was young and stupid. You don't have to be. The documents laid it out clean. Vincent's pattern: target small business owners, usually women, usually in their 50s. Become a client. Turn on the charm, suggest exciting opportunities, and seduce them emotionally, financially, physically, whatever worked. Get access to property records. File assessments, create pressure, push for sales. The wives never saw it until too late, thought they were being smart, modern, taking control of their financial futures. The husbands lost their land, their marriages, and their dignity. Jenny's final paragraph hit hardest. Check if your wife has opened a new bank account. Mine did. He convinced her it was financial independence. Really, it was just a place to hide money until the divorce was final. She deposited $60,000 from his consulting fees before I even knew what was happening. I read it twice, then saved it to 3 different places: laptop, flash drive, printed copy in a folder. The space heater rattled. Wind pressed against the barn walls, whistling through cracks in the siding. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I drank it anyway, bitter and thick. The locked filing drawer. The survey maps in the trash. The hotel receipt. And now this. Check if your wife has opened a new bank account. I had evidence. Finally. Real, solid, documented evidence. For the first time in 3 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The credit card statement came 4 days later, addressed to Clayton and Diane Mercer, joint account holders, except we only had 1 credit card. The farm supply store card we'd used for 30 years, paid off every month. This statement was from First National. Different bank entirely, card I'd never seen. I opened it standing at the mailbox. Late afternoon, March 1st, cold rain starting to fall. Wet cardboard smell from the package box someone had left by the road. The paper got damp in my hands. Statement balance: $3,847.62, charges at restaurants I didn't recognize, hotel stays, cash advances, shopping. And at the bottom, in the payment section, automatic deposit from SD Consulting, LLC, $45,000. R0, SD Consulting, Stallworth Development, $45,000. Deposited into an account I didn't know existed. In my wife's name, no, our names, joint account. She'd forged my signature on the application, had to have. The rain picked up, cold drops hitting my neck, soaking through my collar. I stood there at the mailbox reading the statement 3 times, water blurring the ink. Jenny's words echoed, check if your wife has opened a new bank account. She had. And she'd put my name on it too, without asking, without telling me. Which meant when the divorce came, and it was coming now, I could feel it. She'd argue the money was joint marital property, half hers by law, except I had proof. The email from Jenny, the timeline, the pattern, I had proof she was being used, manipulated. That Vincent had done this before. I could show her, warn her, maybe save the marriage if I... No. The hotel receipt. January 14th, room 302. She'd already made her choice. This wasn't about saving anything anymore. The rain soaked through my coat. My hands were cold, numb, shaking slightly. I folded the credit card statement, put it in my inside pocket with the hotel receipt. Started walking back toward the house. I had proof. documentation, a pattern established. An expert witness in Jenny who could testify if needed. I felt in control for the first time since the church potluck. But there was one more thing I needed. One phone call I'd sworn 8 years ago I'd never make. What I needed was timing, and a lawyer who knew every trick in the book. What I needed was my brother. I waited until Thursday evening, gave myself time to organize everything. Printed emails, bank statements, hotel receipt, property assessments, Jenny's timeline. Put it all in a manila folder, neat and clean, the way I used to present evidence to insurance adjusters. Diane was in her office. I could hear the calculator clicking, papers rustling, lavender candles burning. She always lit them when she worked late. The smell drifted through the crack under the door, sweet and cloying. I knocked, waited. I'm busy, Clay. Need to talk to you, now. Long pause. The calculator stopped clicking, chair scraped. She opened the door halfway, blocking the entry with her body, hair pulled back, reading glasses on, professional armor. What is it? Let's sit down. I have a deadline. Diane, sit down. Something in my voice made her step back. I walked into the office. The filing cabinets lined one wall, the new brass lock gleaming on the second drawer. Her desk was covered in spreadsheets, client folders, coffee cups with lipstick stains on the rims. I put the manila folder on her desk. Didn't open it yet. She sat, crossed her arms. What's this about? Vincent Stallworth. Her face went careful, neutral. The same expression she used with the IRS when they audited clients. My client. What about him? He's not just your client. I opened the folder, pulled out the hotel receipt first, set it in front of her. Hampton Inn, January 14th, the ice storm night. She glanced at it, didn't pick it up. I don't know what that is. It was in your coat pocket. Your perfume's still on it. Silence. The furnace kicked on, warm air blowing through the vents. Outside, the March wind rattled bare branches against the house. Clay, I'm not done. I laid out the credit card statement, the joint account, the $45,000 deposit. SD Consulting. That's Stallworth Development. $45,000 into an account I never knew existed. Her jaw tightened. That's my business income. It's a joint account with my name on the application. I never signed it. You did, last year. Don't you remember? Show me the signature card. She didn't move. I pulled out Jenny's email. The timeline, the pattern across 3 counties. He's done this before, 3 times. Always targets women business owners. Always ends with the husband losing the land and the wife getting paid off. Diane picked up the papers. Read for maybe 30 seconds. Set them down. Her face had changed. Harder now. Defensive. This is different. How? Because I'm not some victim. I know exactly what I'm doing. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the dark orchard. The orchard's dying, Clay. You know it. I know it. We haven't made a profit in 6 years. You're grafting dead trees like some kind of... She waved her hand. Like you can resurrect what's already gone. That land's been in my family since 1907, and it'll die with you if you don't do something. She turned around. Her eyes were bright, fevered. Vincent's offering us a way out, a good way. Development deal, proper zoning, real money. We could retire, travel, actually enjoy our lives instead of watching you play farmer with your grandfather's ghost. The words hit like fists, each one calculated, aimed. You slept with him. That's... She stopped, took a breath, started again, calmer. That's not relevant to the business discussion. Answer the question. Long silence. Wind outside, the candle flames flickering. I want to open our marriage. Her voice was steady now, almost gentle. Try something new. We've been together 33 years, Clay. Things get stale. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I want more. You want permission, after you already did it. I want us to move forward, together. Modern couples do this. They explore. They stay committed emotionally while you fuck my wife's client and steal my grandfather's land. And her face went cold. The orchard is dying. Vincent offers dignity, a real exit strategy. You've been grafting dead trees for 10 years like some pathetic... Get out. This is my house too. Get out of my sight. She grabbed her purse, her phone, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the frame. The orchard's been dead for years, Clay. You're just too stubborn to bury it. She locked herself in the spare bedroom. I heard the deadbolt click. I sat in her office chair, staring at the evidence spread across her desk. The lavender candles burned down to nothing. The coffee in her mug went cold. Around 2 a.m, I heard her snoring. Light, whistling sound through the spare bedroom door. I went back to the office, stood in front of the filing cabinet, the second drawer with the shiny new brass lock. 30 years investigating insurance fraud. I'd learned to pick locks by the time I was 25. Simple pin and tumbler mechanism. Basic Yale design. Took me 4 minutes with a paperclip and a flathead screwdriver. The drawer slid open, smooth, quiet, files. Organized alphabetically. I pulled them out one by one, photographed each page with my phone. The smell of paper and ink, my hands steady now, methodical. Property lien applications, 3 of them. All prepared for filing, all listing Clayton and Diane Mercer joint consent at the bottom. My signature on every one. Except I'd never signed them. Never seen them. I held them under the desk lamp. The signatures were close, real close, she'd practiced. But the Y in Clayton had the wrong tail. Too short. I always wrote it long, looping, forged. All 3, dated 6 weeks ago, February 1st. Right after the ice storm, right after the hotel. Notary stamp at the bottom. Rebecca Mills, Notary Public. I knew Rebecca. She worked at Vincent's office. Fake notary, fake signatures. Real documents, ready to file. One more form at the back of the drawer. Property sale authorization. Preliminary agreement between Mercer Family Trust and Stallworth Development, LLC. Sale price, $2. $4 million. My 80 acres, grandfather's orchard, divided into 16 commercial parcels. My forged signature at the bottom, Diane's real one right beside it, dated March 1st last week. They'd already agreed to the sale, behind my back. Using my forged consent, I could lose everything. The land, the orchard, grandfather's legacy, everything 4 generations had built. Or I could bury her first. I took pictures of everything. Closed the drawer, locked it back. Put the paperclip and screwdriver away, walked out to the barn in the dark, 3 o'clock in the morning. Cold March wind, mud sucking at my boots, sat in grandfather's workshop. The grafting tools still laid out from January. The trees I tried to save. She'd forged my name. Sold my grandfather's land in secret. Committed fraud. Multiple counts. This wasn't betrayal anymore. This was crime. I could lose everything. Or I could bury her first. My phone sat on the workbench. 1 bar of signal. Roy's number still in my contacts after 8 years of silence. 2 choices. Call the cops or call the one man who could help me bury her legally. I picked up the phone. The phone rang 4 times. I thought maybe he wouldn't answer. 2:30 in the morning. Unknown number after 8 years of silence. Then, hello? Rough voice. Sleep thick, suspicious. Roy, it's Clay. Silence on the other end. Wind howling through the barn gaps. I could hear my own breathing, too loud in the quiet. Clay. Not a question, just my name. Careful. It's been a while. 8 years. Give or take. He cleared his throat. Sound of rustling. Sheets, maybe. Getting out of bed. You calling to tell me you're dying or something? No. Then what? I looked at the phone, almost hung up. Pride's a stubborn thing. But pride wouldn't save the orchard. I need help. Legal help. More silence, then footsteps on his end. A door closing. What kind of trouble? Diane's trying to sell the orchard. Forged my signature on property lien documents. Been sleeping with a real estate developer. They've got a preliminary sale agreement already drawn up. $2.4 million. She's cutting me out of my own land. Roy breathed out slow. Jesus Christ. He did this before. 3 other towns. Same pattern. I've got documentation. Timeline. Expert witness. But I need... My voice caught. I need someone who knows what the hell they're doing. You got the forged documents? Photographed them an hour ago. All of it. Don't touch the originals again. Don't let her know you saw them. His voice had changed. Sharp now. Focused. The lawyer voice I remembered from before the fight. Before he'd wanted to sell grandfather's orchard and I'd told him to go to hell and never come back. Clay, I'm 40 miles away. Roads are probably shit with the mud season. I know. I'm leaving in 20 minutes. My throat got tight. Roy, she went after Grandpa's land. Something dangerous in his voice now, cold and precise. That woman just made the worst mistake of her life. He hung up. I sat in the workshop listening to the wind. Diesel smell, from the old tractor mixed with sawdust and wood smoke. The space heater ticked, cooling down. Outside, mud season had turned everything to soup. Brown, wet, rotting. My hands were shaking. I hadn't noticed until now. I'd called my brother. The brother I'd thrown off this property 8 years ago. Told him if he wanted to sell our heritage, he could do it over my dead body. Said some things I couldn't take back about loyalty and family and knowing when to let go. He was coming anyway. I stood up, needed to do something with my hands. Started organizing the workshop. Tools back in their places, grafting supplies sorted, workbench cleared. Grandfather had always kept it neat. A cluttered shop means a cluttered mind, he used to say. His old toolbox sat on the shelf. Hadn't opened it in years. I pulled it down, wiped off the dust. Inside, hand tools from the 40s and 50s. a level with a brass plate, his initials scratched into the handle of a hammer, and underneath, wrapped in oilcloth, his field diary. I'd forgotten about this. Grandfather had kept records of everything: planting dates, weather patterns, harvest yields, grafting experiments, 50 years of notes in cramped handwriting. The leather cover was worn soft, pages yellowed and brittle. I opened it carefully, the spine cracked. Smell of old paper and machine oil. First entry, April 15th, 1947. Planted first tree today. Honeycrisp rootstock. If this takes, maybe we build something that lasts. I flipped through slowly. Years of entries, successes and failures. Notes about which grafts took and which died. Philosophical observations mixed with practical data. Then, near the back, dated 1992, 2 years before he died. Clay asked me today why I never sold to the developers. They offered good money, enough to retire comfortable. I told him, a man who sells his grandfather's land sells his soul. Some things aren't for sale. Some things you hold until they bury you with them. The words blurred. I blinked hard, wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Headlights swept across the barn wall. Engine sound. Tires in gravel and mud. 3:40 in the morning. Roy had made 40 miles of bad roads in just over an hour. I walked out into the cold rain. Light drizzle. Temperature just above freezing. His truck, newer model, clean, sat in the drive with the engine still running. Windshield wipers going. Roy climbed out. Older than I remembered. 68 now. Gray in his beard. Deep lines around his eyes. Carrying a briefcase in one hand and a bag of yellow legal pads in the other. We stood there in the rain. Brothers. Estranged for 8 years over the same land Diane was trying to steal now. You look like hell, he said. You drove through mud season at 3 in the morning. Yeah, well. He walked toward the barn, not waiting for an invitation. I'm an idiot. I followed him inside. He set his briefcase on the workbench, shrugged out of his wet coat, saw the documents I'd laid out. The photographs on my phone. Grandfather's diary still open to that page. He read the entry. Once, twice. Looked up at me. A man who sells his grandfather's land sells his soul. His voice was rough. I was wrong 8 years ago. I was wrong to ask you to sell. Roy, let me say it. I was wrong. You were right. And I'm sorry it took your wife betraying you for me to come back and tell you that. The rain drummed on the barn roof. Steady, relentless. Brothers before land, he said. That's what Grandpa always told us. I forgot that. I won't forget again. He held out his hand. I shook it. Held on longer than necessary. Now. Roy pulled out a yellow legal pad, clicked his pen. Let's bury this woman, legally, publicly, and completely. He smiled. First time in 8 years. We're going to serve her at Maggie's Diner, Sunday breakfast, where the whole damn town can watch. Roy worked through the night, yellow legal pads filling up with notes, timelines, legal citations. He'd make coffee runs to the house when we needed it, moving quiet so Diane wouldn't hear. She stayed locked in the spare bedroom. By dawn, we had a strategy. Process server, Monday morning, Roy said. His handwriting covered 6 pages. But not at the house. Too private. You want this public. Why? Because she humiliated you publicly. Church potluck, remember? Touching another man in front of your community. You give it back the same way. He tapped his pen against the pad. Where does she go Sunday mornings? I thought about it. Church. Then usually Maggie's Diner for breakfast after. Perfect. Maggie still run that place? 30 years now. Roy smiled. Then that's where we serve her. Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, breakfast rush, maximum witnesses. My stomach twisted. Roy, I don't know. You want to save the orchard or not? He looked at me hard. This isn't about revenge. This is about showing the town and showing her that you won't be walked on. Small towns respect strength. You serve her quietly at home, everyone assumes you're ashamed. You serve her at Maggie's, everyone knows she should be. The logic was sound, cold, but sound. I'll call the process server today, Roy said. But you need to talk to Maggie first. Give her a heads up. She deserves to know her diner's about to become a courthouse. Saturday afternoon, I drove to town. The roads were still half mud, potholes filled with brown water. March, rain coming down steady, not hard, just persistent. Windshield wipers squeaking. Maggie's Diner sat on Main Street between the hardware store and the post office. Red vinyl booths, visible through the windows. The open sign buzzed, neon flickering. I parked in front, sat there a minute, engine running, heat blowing. Through the window, I could see Maggie behind the counter, coffee pot in hand. 73 years old and still working 6 days a week. She'd served my family for 3 decades. The bell jingled when I pushed through the door, smell of bacon grease and maple syrup, coffee brewing, the grill sizzling with hash browns. Only 3 customers this late in the afternoon. Tom Bridger, in a corner booth with paperwork. 2 farmers I didn't know well at the counter. Maggie looked up, smiled. Clay, coffee? Please. And can we talk? Private? Her smile faded. She poured 2 cups, led me to booth 3 in the back. My usual spot. The vinyl was cracked, patched with duct tape. The Formica table had scratches from 50 years of forks and knives. We sat. She waited. Tomorrow morning, I said. Breakfast rush. I'm having Diane served with divorce papers. Here. In this booth. Maggie didn't blink, just nodded slow. Because of Vincent Stallworth. You know? Clay, everyone knows. This is a town of 1,200 people. Diane's been meeting him here for coffee, twice a week since January. Always sits right there. She pointed to booth 5, near the window. Laughs too loud. Touches his arm. We all see it. My face burned. Why didn't anyone tell me? Would you have believed us? Her voice was gentle. Man's got to see it himself. Otherwise, he just gets mad at the messenger. She was right. I would have defended Diane, made excuses. So tomorrow, Maggie said, you're making it official. Roy thinks it sends a message that I won't be walked on. Roy's right. She reached across the table, patted my hand. Her skin was dry, warm, calloused from decades of work. Booth 3 is yours, always has been. You do what you need to do. But Maggie, if this causes problems for your business, Clay, she squeezed my hand. Your grandfather helped me open this place. Loaned me $5,000 when the bank said no. Never asked for a penny of interest. Told me to pay it back when I could. Her eyes got bright. Took me 12 years to pay him back. He never once mentioned it. Just kept coming in for coffee and pie like nothing was owed. I hadn't known that. Tomorrow, this town chooses, she said. And Clay, we already chose. Sunday morning came cold and gray, rain still falling. I dressed careful, clean jeans, button-down shirt, my good boots. Roy met me at the truck, yellow legal pad under his arm and a plastic bag to keep it dry. Process server's already there, he said. Having coffee at the counter. She'll wait for my signal. What's the signal? I walk in. She counts to 30, then serves. The diner parking lot was full. Sunday breakfast rush. Trucks and cars packed tight. Through the windows, I could see every booth occupied. Pastor Elwood near the door, Tom Bridger with his wife, farmers, shop owners, families, maybe 30 people total. And there, in booth 5 by the window, Diane and Vincent. She wore makeup, nice blouse, laughing at something he said. His expensive watch caught the light as he reached across the table, touched her hand. My stomach nodded. Ready? Roy asked. No. Good, let's go. We walked through the rain. The bell jingled when Roy opened the door. Every head turned. The conversation dropped to whispers. Diane saw me. Her smile died. Vincent looked up, saw Roy, tensed like an animal scenting danger. Roy walked to booth 3, sat down. Maggie brought coffee without being asked, set it down gentle. I stayed standing, watching. The process server, middle-aged woman in a pantsuit, professional, set down her coffee cup, checked her watch, started counting. Diane turned back to Vincent, whispered something urgent. He shook his head, started to stand. Diane Mercer? The process server's voice carried across the diner. Clear, official, every conversation stopped. 30 people watching. Diane's face went white. Yes? The woman walked to booth 5, set the envelope on the table between Diane and Vincent. You've been served? Silence. Complete silence except for the coffee pot hissing and the grill fan humming. Diane picked up the envelope, hands shaking, opened it, read the first page. Petition for divorce, in bold letters at the top. Her head snapped up, found me standing by booth 3. Clay, what are you doing? What you should have expected. Vincent stood. This is inappropriate. Sit down, Roy said. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Vincent sat. Diane's hands crumpled the papers. You served me here? In front of everyone? You touched him at church, I said. In front of everyone. Seemed fair. Her face flushed red. She stood, grabbed her purse, threw the papers at me. They scattered across the floor. You bastard. You humiliating bastard. Ma'am. Pastor Elwood's voice from near the door. Old and steady. You humiliated yourself. This is just the documentation. Diane's eyes swept the room, looking for allies, found none. Every face was stone. She turned on Vincent. Say something. Vincent had gone pale. He stood, pulled out his wallet, dropped 2 20s on the table. I have to go. I can't be part of this. Vincent. But he was already moving, fast, not running but close. Pushed through the door without looking back. Through the window, we watched him sprint to his BMW, fumble with the keys, peel out of the parking lot too fast. Mud sprayed from his tires. Abandoned her. Completely. Publicly. Diane stood there alone. Booth 5, 30 witnesses, coffee getting cold. The divorce papers scattered at my feet. She tried to speak, failed, tried again. "You're going to regret this." Then she ran, out the door, into the rain. Her car started with a roar, tires spinning in the mud. The diner stayed quiet for 5 seconds. 10. Then Maggie walked over, picked up the divorce papers from the floor, stacked them neat, handed them to Roy. "Coffee's on the house, boys," she said. Tom Bridger stood, walked over to booth 3, extended his hand. I shook it. He didn't say anything, didn't need to. One by one, others came over, a word, a handshake, a nod. The farmers I barely knew, shop owners, church members, Pastor Elwood last. He put his hand on my shoulder. "The Lord sees truth, Clay, and so do we." As then Roy sat there with his coffee and yellow legal pad, writing notes. When the crowd finally dispersed, he looked up at me. "Vincent ran," he said. "That tells us something useful." "What?" "That he's a coward when things get public. And cowards make mistakes under pressure." He flipped to a new page, started writing. "Now we find out what mistakes he's already made." The week after the diner, Diane moved out. Didn't say where. Just packed 3 suitcases in her laptop and left while I was checking the irrigation system in the back. 40. When I came home, her car was gone. Half the closet empty, bathroom cleared of her things. The house felt bigger, colder. Every sound echoed. The furnace kicking on, my boots on the hardwood, the coffee pot hissing in the morning. Roy stayed at the farm, set up in the spare bedroom with his legal pads and laptop. We fell into a rhythm. Coffee at dawn, work during the day, him on the case, me on the orchard. Dinner together, usually something simple. Grilled cheese, soup from a can. Neither of us cooked worth a damn. Thursday night, a week after the serving, I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing Diane's face in the diner, the way she'd crumpled those papers, the humiliation in her eyes when Vincent ran. Around midnight, I gave up on the bed, pulled on my coat and boots, walked out to the barn. Cold rain falling, steady and soft. April rain, warmer than March but still mean, the kind that soaks through to your bones. The workshop smelled like sawdust and old diesel. I fired up the space heater, stood there shivering while it warmed up. The grafted trees from January sat on the workbench. Most had taken. New growth, showing green at the joints, where I'd bound old and new together. But 3 had died. The grafts hadn't taken. Brown branches, brittle and dead despite everything I'd done right. I picked one up, studied the joint, perfect cut, perfect angle, perfect binding. Sometimes you do everything right and the tree still dies. Grandfather's diary sat where Roy had left it last week. I opened it, flipped past the entry about not selling the land. Found other entries, later ones. July 1993. Clay's stubborn, gets it from me, I suppose. But stubborn can turn into rigid if you're not careful. Gotta know when to bend or you break. December 1993. Talked with Roy today. He wants to sell the North 20, use the money for law school. Clay won't hear it. Says it's betrayal. I told him compromise isn't weakness. Brothers matter more than land. He didn't want to hear that either. March 1994, 3 months before grandfather died. Righteousness without mercy is just cruelty in disguise. Learn that from the war. You can be right about something and still be wrong in how you do it. Clay will have to learn that himself. Can't teach a man what he won't hear. The words hit different this time. Righteousness without mercy is just cruelty. I'd served Diane at Maggie's diner. Public humiliation. 30 witnesses. Made her run out crying while Vincent abandoned her. Had that been justice or just revenge? She'd betrayed me, forged my signature, tried to steal my land, slept with another man while we were still married. But I'd also destroyed her. Publicly, deliberately. Made sure everyone in town watched her fall apart. The space heater rattled. Rain drummed on the tin roof. I sat there with the dead grafted tree in my hands and grandfather's diary open to that page. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I was just a bitter old man getting even. My phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. "This is Patricia Chin, attorney representing Diane Mercer. We should talk. She's willing to negotiate. Call me." I stared at the screen. The heater ticked, warming up. Outside, the rain picked up. Harder now, wind driving it against the barn walls. Diane wanted to negotiate. Probably wanted money, settlement, alimony, maybe a piece of the orchard after all. Or maybe she was scared. Maybe seeing Vincent run had woken her up to what was happening. Maybe... The barn door opened. Roy stood there in his rain jacket, dripping. Saw the light. "You okay?" "Diane's lawyer wants to talk. Negotiate." Roy came in, closed the door against the wind. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." I showed him the diary entry. Grandfather wrote this 3 months before he died, about righteousness and mercy. Roy read it, sat down on the work stool, quiet for a long moment. "You think we went too far," he said. "Not a question. I think I'm 62 years old, and I just humiliated my wife of 33 years. in front of the entire town. Made her cry, made her run, felt good in the moment. Now I don't know what it makes me. Human, Roy said. It makes you human. Or just cruel. Roy picked up one of the dead graphs, studied it like I had. You know what Grandpa told me once when I wanted to sell and you didn't? He said, Roy, you can be right and still be wrong. Your brother's right about keeping the land. You're right about needing to move forward. You're both wrong about how you're treating each other. I threw you off the property, and I told you you were a stubborn old fool living in the past. Roy set down the dead branch. We were both cruel, both righteous, both wrong. The rain settled into a steady rhythm, not pounding anymore, just patient and persistent. What do you want, Clay? Really want? I thought about it. The orchard, the land, grandfather's legacy. But also, 33 years of marriage, good years before these bad months. Diane making coffee in the morning, her laugh before it turned bitter. The way she used to lean against me while we watched storms roll in. I want the orchard safe, I said. I want her to stop trying to steal it, and I want... My voice caught. I want to not feel like a bastard for protecting what's mine. Then we give her one chance. Roy stood up. Before the town hall meeting, before this gets worse, we offer mediation, fair settlement. She gets out clean. You keep the land. Nobody goes to prison for forgery. What if she says no? Then we bury her at town hall Thursday night, legally, completely, with every piece of evidence we've got. His voice went hard. But we give her the chance. That's the mercy part. What she does with it is on her. I looked at the dead graft, then at the living ones. New green growth on old wood. Call her lawyer, I said. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow. Roy nodded, started to leave, stopped at the door. Clay, the diner thing, that wasn't cruelty. That was consequences. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. Cruelty is hurting someone for fun. Consequences is showing them the price of their choices. He pulled his hood up against the rain. She chose to humiliate you publicly. You just gave her the same mirror. He walked back toward the house through the rain. I sat alone in the workshop. The heater ticked. The graphs, alive and dead, sat silent on the bench. Righteousness without mercy is just cruelty in disguise. Tomorrow we'd offer mercy. One chance. After that, it was just consequences. Diane said no to mediation. Her lawyer called back Friday morning. My client believes she's entitled to half the property value. She's willing to drop the forgery claims if you agree to sell and split proceeds. Roy put the phone on speaker. We were in the kitchen, coffee going cold on the table. Drop the forgery claims? Roy's voice could have cut glass. You mean drop the evidence of the crimes she committed? My client maintains she had verbal authorization. Bullshit. We have the forged signature. We have the fake notary stamp. We have the paper trail. You tell your client she can take the settlement offer. She leaves with her personal property and nothing else. Or we see her in court, and then at the town hall meeting Thursday night. Silence on the other end. Town hall? Vincent Stallworth's development proposal is on the zoning agenda. We'll be presenting evidence of fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. Your client's name is all over it. Might want to tell her that. You can't. Roy hung up, looked at me. Well, we tried mercy. Now what? Now we prepare for war. He pulled out fresh legal pads, started making list. Thursday night, town hall, 7 p.m. We need a presentation, evidence boards, witnesses, community support. Roy, I'm not good at public speaking. You won't have to. I'll handle the presentation. But we need people willing to testify about Diane and Vincent, about the pattern, about community values. He wrote names. Pastor Elwood, Maggie, Tom, if he'll do it. Tom's stuck. He's the banker. Confidentiality. Tom provided account information to you about your own property. That's not a breach. And if he's willing to testify about suspicious activity, financial pressure, attempted bribery, Roy tapped his pen. That's gold. The coffee pot hissed. Rain pattered against the kitchen window. Softer now. The April thaw continuing. Mud everywhere, but underneath, green starting to show. Early grass. The first brave shoots. I'll call Pastor Elwood, I said. Yeah, you call Tom. And we spent the afternoon making calls, building the case. Pastor Elwood agreed immediately. Christian values, he said. Land stewardship, community trust, I'll testify to all of it. Tom took longer. Roy talked to him for 40 minutes. I heard pieces of it from the living room. Not about revenge, protecting the community. He did this in 3 other towns. Finally, Tom agreed. Said he'd bring banking records, transaction patterns. The inquiries about liens and forced sales, suspicious cash movements between Vincent's LLCs. Maggie called without us asking. Heard you're doing something at Town Hall Thursday. Need me? Yeah, I said. We do. Good. That man's been spreading money around town like fertilizer. Someone needs to point out it stinks. And by evening, we had 5 witnesses, evidence boards planned, a timeline, Shell, company documentation from Jenny, property records showing Vincent's pattern across 3 counties. Roy sat at the kitchen table with 7 yellow legal pads full of notes. The floor was covered with papers, documents, printouts. His laptop showed a PowerPoint presentation. 47 slides of evidence. Thursday night, he said. We take him apart, legally, publicly, completely. I looked at the evidence, the witnesses, the preparation. What if they side with him? What if the town wants the development, jobs and tax revenue? Then we lose. Roy looked up. His eyes were hard, certain. But we make them understand what they're choosing. We make them see the pattern, the fraud, the manipulation, and we let them decide if that's the kind of progress they want. He went back to his notes, writing, preparing. The rain had stopped. Through the window, I could see the orchard in the fading light. Bare branches, but buds starting to form. Tight green promises of spring. Thursday night, town hall meeting. 47 pages of evidence on yellow legal pad paper. We'd given Diane mercy. She'd chosen war. Now we'd give her consequences. Thursday night, the town hall was packed. Every folding chair occupied. People standing along the walls. The room smelled like wet coats and floor wax. Rain drumming on the metal roof overhead. Steady, relentless, April rain that wouldn't quit. 80 people, maybe more. I recognized most of them. Farmers, shop owners, church members. Tom Bridger, near the front with a briefcase. Maggie 3 rows back. Pastor Elwood by the center aisle. And there, in the second row, Diane and Vincent. She wore a business suit, professional armor. Hair perfect, makeup careful. Vincent beside her, in an expensive jacket, crisp shirt, that Rolex catching the fluorescent lights. Roy sat at the presentation table, yellow legal pads stacked in front of him. Laptop connected to the projector, 47 slides ready to go. The zoning board chairman, Ed Hutchins, ran the hardware store, banged his gavel. Meeting called to order. First item, Stallworth Development Proposal for Commercial Rezoning, Mercer Property, Route 49. Vincent stood, confident, smiled at the room. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll keep this brief. He had slides too. Artist renderings, strip mall, storage units, Phase 1 development, tax revenue projections, job creation numbers, rural revitalization, he said. Smooth voice, practiced. Bringing progress to our community. The Mercer Orchard has been in decline for years. This proposal offers a path forward. Modern development, 21st century opportunity. Some heads nodded. The younger farmers, people who needed work. Mrs. Mercer has been instrumental in this project. Vincent gestured to Diane. Her financial expertise, her vision for the community's future. Mr. Chairman. Roy stood. Point of order. Ed looked surprised. You're not on the agenda, Roy. I'm representing Clayton Mercer, property owner. I have evidence relevant to this proposal. Vincent's smile slipped. This is highly irregular. The property owner has a right to respond to proposals involving his land, Roy said, his voice carried, clear, authoritative. Especially when fraud is involved. The room went quiet, rain on the roof, the only sound. Ed shifted in his chair. Fraud is a serious allegation. Yes, sir, it is. Roy opened his laptop. First slide appeared on the screen. I'll be brief. He wasn't brief. He was surgical. Slide 1, timeline. Vincent's previous 3 developments, counties, dates, property owners. Mr. Stallworth has done this before. 3 times. Same pattern every time. Target family-owned agricultural land. Befriend the wife. Manipulate property assessments. Force sales. Slide 2, shell companies. LLCs with different names, same ownership structure. Vincent's name buried in the fine print. These entities share bank accounts, board members, and registered addresses, all controlled by Mr. Stallworth. Vincent stood. This is defamatory. Sit down, Ed said. You had your time. Vincent sat. Face red now. That confident smile gone. Roy kept going. Bank records, property assessments, the suspicious doubling of Clay's tax valuation. Tom stood, testified about the inquiries regarding property liens, about pressure to approve loans against the orchard. Stallworth suggested the bank could benefit from facilitating development, Tom said. Quiet voice, but steady. Implied there would be rewards for cooperation. I documented everything. Slide 15, the forged signatures. Clay's name on lien documents. 3 different applications, all dated February through March. Roy zoomed in on the signatures. Notice the Y in Clayton. Too short, wrong loop. Mr. Mercer's actual signature has a distinct tail. These are forgeries. Murmurs through the crowd. Chairs squeaking. Someone coughed. Slide 20, the fake notary stamp. Rebecca Mills, Vincent's office manager. Ms. Mills is not a licensed notary in this county. This stamp is fraudulent. More murmurs, louder now. Roy pulled out Jenny's documentation. Testimony from the previous towns. Wives who'd lost their marriages, husbands who'd lost their land. Pattern after pattern after pattern. Mr. Stallworth is not a developer, Roy said. He's a predator. He targets vulnerable families, manipulates wives, steals generational land. Vincent stood again. These are lies. Then sue me for slander. Roy's voice cut like a blade. I'll see you in court with all of this evidence, under oath. Vincent's jaw worked. He looked at Diane. She stared straight ahead, face pale. Slide 32, the preliminary sale agreement. 2.4 million, 16 commercial parcels. Clay's 80 acres divided up like a pie. This agreement was drawn up without Mr. Mercer's knowledge or consent. His signature was forged. His wife acted in secret with Mr. Stallworth to sell land that has been in his family since 1907. Pastor Elwood stood. May I speak? Ed nodded. There's a saying in this community, Pastor Elwood said. His voice filled the room, old and strong, passed down from the men who built these farms. A man who sells his grandfather's land sells his soul. That's not just words, that's covenant. That's trust between generations. He pulled out a worn book, Grandfather's Diary. Roy had given it to him yesterday. Clayton Mercer's grandfather wrote this in 1992. He read the entry. The whole thing. About not selling to developers. About some things not being for sale. That land is trust, Pastor Elwood said, a sacred trust, and this board should not be complicit in breaking it. Silence. Complete silence except for the rain. Ed looked at the other board members. They whispered together. Finally, Ed banged his gavel. Proposal denied. Pending further investigation into the allegations raised tonight, meeting adjourned. Vincent was already moving. Grabbed his briefcase, pushed through the crowd toward the exit. Diane tried to follow him. Vincent, wait. He didn't wait, didn't look back, out the door into the rain. Engine starting, tires on wet pavement, gone. Diane stood in the doorway, rain blowing in. Everyone watching. She turned, found Roy and me sitting at the table. You've ruined everything, she said, voice shaking. My reputation, my business, my life. You did that yourself, Roy said, calm, clinical. We just showed people the receipts. She left, slammed the door behind her. People came over, shook hands. Tom, Maggie, Pastor Elwood, farmers I barely knew, one by one. Your grandfather would be proud, Maggie said, squeezed my hand. Roy packed up his laptop, stacked the yellow legal pads. We walked out into the rain together. The parking lot half empty now. Cold wind, but warmer than March. Spring rain instead of winter ice. That went well, Roy said. You think it's over? Not quite. He opened his truck door. There's one more thing I did 3 days ago. What? Sent all the evidence to Diane's employer, her client list. The bookkeeping firm that contracts her. He looked at me. She slept with a client, Clay. Committed fraud using her professional credentials. That's grounds for termination. Loss of license. My stomach dropped. Roy, she was going to take your land, your legacy, everything. His voice was hard. This is consequences. All the way down. He drove off. I stood in the rain, watching his taillights disappear. 3 days ago, before the town hall, before she'd even had a chance to change course. Roy hadn't just buried her legally. He'd buried her completely. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. They fired me. Because of you. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen, rain soaking through my coat, cold water running down my neck. Was I happy? No, but I was done. The divorce hearing was May 12th. County courthouse. 3rd floor. Judge Margaret Wheeler presiding. Small room, wood paneling, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Smell of old carpet and coffee. Diane sat with her lawyer. Patricia Chen, expensive suit, tired eyes. I sat with Roy, his yellow legal pads stacked on the table between us. Evidence binders, photographs, bank statements. We didn't need most of it. Patricia had called Roy 2 days before, asked what settlement we'd accept. She gets her personal property, Roy said. Her car, her clothes, nothing else. The orchard is premarital family trust property, protected under state law. What about alimony? She forged his signature, committed fraud, tried to steal his family's land. Roy's voice went cold. She's lucky we're not pressing criminal charges. Tell her to take the deal, or we go to trial. Her choice. She took the deal. Judge Wheeler reviewed the settlement agreement, read it twice, looked over her glasses at Diane. Mrs. Mercer, do you understand you're waiving all claims to the property known as Mercer Orchards? All claims to spousal support, that you're leaving this marriage with only your personal property And your vehicle. Diane's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. And you understand why? Silence. Diane's lawyer whispered something. Diane nodded. Yes. The court accepts the settlement as fair given the circumstances. Judge Wheeler signed the papers. 3 copies. You're divorced, effective immediately. That was it. 33 years of marriage ended in 11 minutes. We filed out into the hallway. Diane didn't look at me, just walked toward the elevator with her lawyer, her shoulders hunched, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, the professional armor gone. The elevator doors closed. She was gone. Feel better? Roy asked. No. I stared at the closed elevator doors. But I feel done. Vincent Stallworth left town the week after the town hall meeting. Someone saw him loading boxes into his BMW outside his office. The for lease sign went up 2 days later. Tom told me the rest over coffee at Maggie's. State Attorney's Office opened an investigation. Fraud. Bribery, conspiracy, Vincent's shell companies got subpoenaed, bank records, everything. He run or get arrested. Ran, closed his business, broke his lease, gone. Tom stirred sugar into his coffee. Rumor is he's in Florida now, laying low. And the bribery charges? 3 board members resigned. Ed Hutchins kept his seat, he wasn't involved. But the others? Tom shook his head. They'll probably see charges. Vincent paid them through his LLCs. Paper trail's clear. Maggie refilled our cups. Good riddance to bad garbage. Diane's social media went dark after the hearing. No posts, no updates. Someone at church said she'd moved to Columbus, rented an apartment, got a job doing bookkeeping for a chain restaurant. Different name, different city, starting over. Her old clients abandoned her, all 15. Word had spread about sleeping with Vincent, about the fraud, about the forged signatures. In a community of 1,200 people, reputation is currency. Hers was worthless now. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel bad either. Just empty. She'd made her choices. These were the consequences. The first apple blossoms came on May 20th. I found them at dawn, walking the orchard with my coffee. Grandfather's first tree, the one planted in 1947, had clusters of white flowers, delicate, fragile. Sweet smell on the morning air. The grafts I'd made in January had taken. New growth on old wood. Green shoots pushing through brown bark. Life from what looked dead. Roy came out from the barn, his own coffee steaming in the cool morning. He'd extended his stay, said his law practice could handle things remotely for a while. Said maybe he'd keep a room here. Come back on weekends. We'd see. They took, he said, looking at the grafted trees. Most of them. That's all you can ask. He sipped his coffee. Can't save every branch, but you save what you can. We stood there in the morning quiet, robins singing, bees starting to hum around the blossoms. The soil warm now, crumbling soft when you walked on it. Winter mud finally dried to spring earth. What now? Roy asked. I looked at the orchard. 80 acres. 4 generations. Protected. Safe. Mine. Now I plant, I said. Keep the records. Do the work. Sounds boring? It is. I smiled. But it's mine. Roy clinked his coffee mug against mine. To boring. To boring. The sun cleared the tree line. Warm light spreading across the fields. The blossoms glowed white against the morning sky. Grandfather's tree. Still standing, still blooming, after 78 years. Some things are worth fighting for. Some roots go too deep to let go. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the seedlings Roy and I had planted in the Northeast 40. New saplings. Young trees that wouldn't bear fruit for 5 years, maybe 7. But they'd bear eventually. That's how orchards work. You plant for people you'll never meet. I opened Grandfather's diary, wrote the date, the weather, the first report of growth. Continuing his record, keeping the log that would outlast us both. The daffodils I'd planted on his grave were blooming now, yellow and bright against the gray stone. I'd go visit this afternoon, tell him the orchard was safe, that Roy was home, that we'd held the line. From the barn, I heard Roy's voice, talking on the phone with a client. He'd set up an office in the tack room, said the quiet helped him think, said maybe lawyering and farming weren't so different, both about building something that lasts, both about understanding what's underneath. The sun cleared the tree line, warming the porch boards. Bees hummed in the apple blossoms. A robin sang from the fence post. Same robin, every spring, same song. What I'd lost. A 33-year marriage. The illusion of partnership. Years of shared history that turned out to be built on sand. What I'd kept. The land. My dignity. My brother. My name. Some battles you win with noise. This one I won, with receipts and patience, and my grandfather's warning from the grave. But the real victory wasn't in the winning. It was in the staying. In the morning coffee, in the rain gauge, in the field diary that would outlive us all. In the grafts that took, and the blossoms that came, and the work that continued regardless. Roy walked out with fresh coffee, sat beside me without speaking. We watched the orchard wake up together. The land remembers who loved it and who tried to sell it, and now, finally, it could rest.